Hey guys, welcome to today's video. I'm going to be refinishing this teak desk today, and I'm going to be trying my best to make it look good as new. So I'm going to show you the desk. This is the desk right here. It's this beautiful teak desk, so I'm going to take you through all of the different steps that I'm going to take to clean this up, sand it down, and refinish it. Let's get right into the video. So first I'm just going to wipe it down with some TSP. It's just a degreasing solution. I just want to make sure I get all of the dirt out before I start sanding it, because I just want to get all of that grime out and have something fresh to sand down. Alright, so now that it's all wiped down, there's a little bit of tape on here that I'm just going to try and get off with a little scraper, so that I can, when I sand it down, my sander doesn't get stuck on the tape. So I'm just taking a scraper just like this, and I'm just going to scrape off Alright, so that seems to be all of the tape. So now I'm just going to get right into sanding. I'd like to start with the top of the desk because it's the flat surface, it's really easy. So I have an orbital sander with some 80 grit sandpaper that I'm going to be using to sand the surface of the desk, and probably the legs and all of the flat surfaces that I can reach. But because it's really big, I might have to do some hand sanding with some 80 grit sandpaper by hand, so that's okay. Just like some small areas that I can't reach with the orbital, but let's get right into that. So I'm just going to be taking my orbital sander and sanding this whole entire top down. So as you can see, I've done about a quarter of the table. So I'm just going with the grain so that I'm not going like up and down against the grain. Just even though this spins in a circle, it's still better to go with the grain. So I'm gonna finish this all up and get back to you when I'm done the whole entire tabletop, and then I'll show you how I do these smaller areas. Okay, so I've gotten everything off the top of this table. It's nice and smooth. When you're doing this, you got to be really careful that you don't go through the veneer, because it's not a solid piece of wood, especially when you're using the sander. Once you see that the finish is off a spot, just move on, and you can always come back to it later if there's a deeper scratch or something like that. But if you can't get the scratch all the way out, that's okay, because you know, it's a veneer, so you don't want to go too deep and risk going through just to get one scratch out, which isn't going to make that much of a difference in the long run. So now I'm going to I'm going to see if I can use this on some of the more flat surfaces like the legs, and if I have to, I'll sand a little bit by hand. Okay, so I'm just finding a comfortable position on the ground, and then I'm going to just try my best to sand the legs with the sander. So I'm gonna try using some 80 grit sandpaper by hand, because the sander's really heavy at that angle, so it's a little bit hard to keep holding it up. So I'm gonna try that and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so I'm going to show you what I have so far. So I've just been hand sanding the side of the desk here. So I'm just doing sort of like a scuff sand here. I'm not trying to go as deep as I did on the top because there weren't really a lot of scratches and stuff. I really just want to like freshen up the finish. So I'm going to do the same thing here and the same thing on like the front area. And once we have it all sanded down, I'll show you, and eventually we can get to oiling it, which is the fun part. I'm going to be using some teak oil. It's always so nice to see it just like brighten up and just be new again when you apply the oil after all that hard work sanding. So wish me luck, and I'll show you when I'm done. Alright, so I have sanded down a lot of the desk. I just wanted to show you how I'm going to do the drawers. So this is how the desk is looking so far. I still have to do the front and the other legs, but I just did a scuff sand to the sides and the legs. I didn't try and take it down as intensely as the top, which I was doing with the orbital sander, because it's way more difficult to do it by hand. And unless there's any super deep scratches, I really just need a scuff so that the teak oil has something to hold on to and sink into. So if I saw any scratches, I sort of just like took it away, and I didn't go and intensely sand all the color off of every single spot. So now I'm just going to show you the drawers. So these are the drawers. They have like the little domino handles. There's some marks on this, like here there's some marks, and just a few little scuffs. So I think I'm just going to do a really light scuff sand, and nothing too crazy, just a little bit, just to give the finish a freshen. So I'm just gonna go with my sandpaper. Alright, so I'm gonna finish up both these drawers and finish sanding the rest of the desk. So I just decided to sand down a little bit more than just a scuff sand, so that when the teak oil goes on, it's a little bit more even. Now that it's all sanded down where I want it, I'm just going to wipe it down with some cleaning solution and water on a towel, just to get all of the dust off. I just went ahead and wood filled a few corners and areas where it was chipped. So I just put in some wood filler. It's already almost dry. It only takes a couple of minutes to dry, and then I'm going to sand it down. I also put some in the back here because there was a big chip. So even though it was in the back, I still wanted to sort of blend it in, and I'm going to stain this wood filler once it dries so that it matches the teak color a little bit more. There was also a little like burr hole or something here. It wasn't a chip, but there was a hole in the wood, so I just covered that also. Alright, so I have some stain here that I'm just gonna dip my paintbrush into and use it to paint the wood filler. I don't want too much. I just want a little bit, just enough to color the wood filler. I just want a tiny bit, just enough to color the wood filler slightly orange, so that when I go to put the teak oil on, it blends in a little bit more. Alright, so it's the next day. I'm going to be doing the teak oil today. I'm just going to give it a quick wipe down to get out any particles that have settled overnight, because we've been doing some sanding outside around this desk. So I'm just going to do that with a little microfiber cloth with a tiny bit of water added to it, just to make it a little bit damp. And then we're going to oil it. Alright, so it's all wiped down. Let me go and grab the teak oil. Alright, so what you're going to need is some Minwax teak oil. I'm using this one right here, so it's good for outdoor furniture, which tells me that it has a lot of protection in it, which is what I want. I have used this product before, and I have had a bad experience and a good experience, mostly because I didn't know what I was doing the first time, but now I've got it pretty down packed, and I really do like the look it gives. It doesn't really add any color, it really just gives like a richness, especially to teak. I've also used it on walnut, and I really like how that looks also. So I just have a little glass to pour it into, and a sponge and a glove, and just a little paint can opener to pop the lid open. So I'm going to pour some of this in here, and then we're going to get started, and I'm going to bring you in close so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so you want to take your sponge and just dip it in like so. And then you want to follow the grain. Apply a generous amount so that you can really get it soaked into the wood. Sometimes I just squish the sponge more near the end to get the rest of the product out. Okay, so now I have a coat evenly on top of the desk, so it needs to sit for about 15 minutes, and then you can apply another coat, because it's going to sink into the wood, and then you want to apply more so that there's enough to create like a protective coating. Alright, I'm going in with my second coat now, because it's supposed to sit for 15 minutes and then you can put another coat on. So because it took me a while to do the rest of the desk, I can go back and do the top again. Alright, so I got all the teak oil applied. I ended up doing 3 coats on the top because it really was sucking in all of that oil. So that's what I did on the top, but now I'm just gonna let it sit, let it dry, and it's pretty much complete. I'm gonna come back when it's all dry and just make sure there's nothing that I need to touch up or anything that I missed, but now it's a lunch break for me, and I'll show you how I stage this desk up and make it look all pretty, and hopefully we can get it sold really quickly. Hey guys, so it is the next day. All of the teak oil has dried. I actually ended up wiping the tabletop down with a little bit of paint thinner on a cloth to get away some of the excess teak oil that didn't really absorb, and I didn't really like how it was leaving streaks, and I didn't want it to dry like that. I still feel like it's sunk in a little bit unevenly, so I'm going to take a little bit of Danish oil in golden oak, and I'm just going to go over this really lightly, wiping away all of the excess just on the tabletop to try and achieve more of an even finish, because I don't like how there's some areas that look like it didn't sink in as much, and then some areas where it's shiny. So I also like that this has a satin finish, whereas the teak oil has more of like a matte finish in areas and then shiny finish in areas where it didn't sink in as much. So I'm just going to try and even it out, and we'll see how it goes, and I'll show you how I apply this. It's pretty much the same as the teak oil, except I'm really going to make sure I'm not applying too much at all. Alright, so before I apply the Danish oil, I'm just going to take a little bit of steel wool and just go over the table to get rid of any sort of fibers left over from when I wiped it with a cloth, and also just to make sure everything's really even and nice before I put on the next coat of Danish oil. But this is pretty fine. I don't want to add any scratches. I just want to take away little dust nibs and stuff like that. Alright, so I'm just going to take a microfiber cloth and wipe away any of the dust that left behind. Some Danish oil and put it in this cup. So I'm just using the same sponge I used yesterday for the teak oil. And I'm just going to take a bit of this. And just rub it in. I really don't want too much because there is already teak oil. I'm now just taking a little cloth and I'm just wiping down the surface to get any excess oil. Alright, so the desk is all done. I'm just about to start staging it. So this is it here. So everything's done, all the oil's on. In a couple of spots I didn't really like how the oil was looking, but all in all, like, it really looks great. So over here I was having some trouble around the doorknobs being lighter than the rest of it, because when I was sanding I had a hard time getting really close here. So I just sanded a little bit more around the doorknobs and applied more teak oil to attempt to allow it to become like the same color as the rest of it, and I think it worked. They're looking pretty good. It depends on what lighting you're in and what angle you're looking at it from, but yeah, all good. So I'm gonna stage this and take some photos. So I have this desk all set up, ready to stage. I just have an old school textbook with a plant, my computer, glasses, and a coffee mug just to give it the full effect. This is my staging area. So yeah, I'm just going to take a couple of photos. I'm going to make sure I have at least 10 good ones. That way I can post them on Facebook Marketplace because they take 10 photos. So yeah, all good. It turned out super pretty. So I posted this, I posted the desk on Facebook Marketplace Saturday evening, and by 2 hours later, I had already gotten a deposit for it. So I purchased the desk for $50. My gas was $15, and I ended up selling it for $425. So that leaves a profit of $360. So I put like a good amount of work into this desk, but it didn't take me that long to refinish it, which was good. It really only took an afternoon to sort of sand it and put the oil on, and everything else after that was just touch-ups. So because it was a really nice flat easy surface to work with, it didn't take too long. So I think that was pretty nice. $360, you know, for an afternoon of work, that's not too bad. So yeah, that was the profit that I made on the teak desk. Alright, so that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. I am by no means an expert at refinishing furniture. I am just learning as I go, and even I still have some trouble with it. Like, even doing the teak desk, I guess I put on too much teak oil. I had to do a third coat. I probably shouldn't have, because it tends to dry sticky if there's too much in one spot. So even if you feel like you've wiped away all of the excess, I guess I didn't, because I always feel like there's sections where it just looks like not enough sunk in. So I'm like, I'll just put a tiny bit more, and that tiny bit more turns into a gooey mess. So I took a little bit of paint thinner on a cloth, and I just sort of wiped over it just to get that like sticky feeling off, because that tacky feeling will never really go away because it's hasn't sunk into the wood. So that's how you know you have too much, if it dries tacky. So I just quickly Googled like, what can I wipe down teak oil with that will like take away the stickiness, and it said mineral spirits, which is very similar to paint thinner. I still have to get some mineral spirits, but anyways, I'm going off track. Even I don't do it perfectly, still learning, still making mistakes, but that's the thing, if you make a mistake, now you get to learn how to fix that mistake. So that's a plus. But anyways, it's a learning experience. So I really hope you liked it. I hope you got some tips and tricks, and hopefully you'll give this video a like if you did find it helpful, and subscribe if you want to see more content of me learning and trying things and showing you how I do it. But anyways, I hope you have a good day, and bye for now.